Call them after the meeting. Go ahead and call the meeting to order. We have a quorum, and we'll ask for a motion to approve the agenda with one exception. We will take up item 9. Will not be a voting item today.
Move approval. Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Approved.
Aye.
We'll now move to approval of the March meeting minutes. If I could get a motion. Approval.
Second.
All those in favor will say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? All right, we're now at the point of our meeting where we have public comment. I believe we have one public comment. Carol, come up front and introduce yourself.
Some in this room will recognize this. My name is Carol Maher. I live in downtown Des Moines in Ward 3. I'm also a biking and safety transportation advocate in the city. Agenda item number 11 today requests your approval for the funding scenario. There was a low minimum safety score added to the metric, which was very exciting, but it's a really low minimum. It's very low. And there were a couple of communities at the recent exec meeting that said they may not be able to meet that safety hurdle because all they do is put in new streets and they wouldn't perhaps meet that hurdle. But they were told that no problem, they'll be able to meet that hurdle. Everyone will be able to meet that hurdle, which begs the point, I think the hurdle's a little low. And if you're putting in new streets, it's really easy to be safe, right? Because we know all the mistakes we made 50 years ago. And we shouldn't be making those going forward. There's easy things to do. There's lots of proven safety countermeasures that you can do with new roads, like leading pedestrian intervals. LPIs, my favorite, especially because I live downtown in Des Moines and we don't have them. And pedestrians are at risk every day. Bike lanes make it safer too, as well as sidewalks. Appropriate speed limits and appropriate weight of lane width. If you start with too wide of lanes, you've got to maintain that sucker for 50 years, which just adds more snow you have to remove, more asphalt you got to lay, more potholes you got to fill. If you right size them from the beginning, you can avoid that additional expense. And basic complete street strategies are what's key when you're putting in new roads. It's an opportunity to really do the right thing. And I hope that when you are putting in new roads, you're thinking about that from a safety point of view. It's not hard. It's easy. We know the bad stuff. Only do the good stuff. And I hope that next year, you're going to raise that safety metric. So it might not be a slam dunk through the door, easy thing to achieve. It involves a little bit more commitment on safety.
Carol. We'll now move on to the consent and vote items, financial statements. Dylan?
Yeah, these are just on there. Ask you to approve the consent agenda. If there's questions about the specific items, we can pull this off and discuss them.
Okay. Second. All those in favor will say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Approved. We'll now move on to Polk County Public Health Traffic Safety Campaign. Gunner?
A real quick introduction here of Julie Van Loo, the director of the Polk County Health Department. We were absolutely thrilled to get a phone call from her staff a month ago saying, hey, we're looking to do some messaging and PR campaign around public or traffic safety. And we were like, oh, great. We would love nothing more than to partner with your organization to put together a systematic program for the entire region to do the education component of the Vision Zero program. And so I'm going to get out of the way and let Julie go.
Thank you so much. Excuse me if I haven't met you. Thank you for giving us a little bit of your time today. And thank you for the work your jurisdictions are already doing to work towards Vision Zero, to work towards making a lot of the infrastructure and other improvements that are vital to improving our traffic-related mortality outcomes. So we have felt the real need from the public health sector just by looking at our traffic fatality and related data in the last year to really enter this space and to hopefully be a connector of all of us raise a shared mission around traffic safety in the Central Iowa region. And so as we looked at that data and we found that our traffic mortality rate has actually doubled in the last 10 years, we're concerned about that. We're trying to figure out what's going on there. How are we going to help folks pay a little bit more attention? And as we started doing that, we started diving into what is everybody already doing in the metro on this. And we found that there's a great deal of movement towards making those infrastructure improvements, towards working together on this. But that the piece that was missing was really that public engagement around that messaging, around what it is that we need folks to know when they're traveling to travel safety, and really helping them understand what the issue is and how they can do their part. So what we've done is pulled together, and Addie, our communications director, is going to walk you through the campaign just a bit. But we've spent a lot of time working with a lot of partners, from advocates to government folks, trying to strike the balance to determine what deserves the most attention in a campaign that's trying to reduce the harm of motor vehicle-related incidents. How do we reach those folks who are difficult to reach? And how do we raise the visibility of this topic generally? This is not a sexy topic. We've been trying to tell folks to drive safely since we've had the automobile, right? So this is a new approach to do it in a really collaborative way, in a way that really tries to go after sub-demographics and reach folks where they are at their level of understanding, and in a way that's trying to raise the understanding that we all have a shared part of responsibility in this. So really excited with the fantastic response that we've received from partners when we've sat down so far, and appreciate you guys hopefully being stewards as well as we continue to roll this out in coming months. Without much ado, Addie Olson. All right, thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Addie Olson. I'm the Communications Director at the Polk County Health Department. I think that Julianne just covered a lot of that for us really, really well. But I'll talk a little bit more about the solution that we've come up with here through our We All Arrive campaign. And when we first started talking about traffic safety and a traffic safety campaign, I really had to think about where the gaps were, and I had to look really hard for those gaps because we have a lot of great messaging and resources that already exist. And a lot of that's done by the folks who are in this room and the folks that you work with. We have really good Vision Zero messaging from the MPO and the City of Des Moines and others. We have good messaging related to traffic safety from DART, the Bicycle Collective, groups like Hunters Against Drunk Driving. And we know the City of West Des Moines' new e-scooter campaign has a lot of good education that we can tap into. And the gap that we found was just it's all happening in silos. So our solution was to come up with a unified message that brought all of these resources together. And we're really not recreating the wheel here. We're just putting all of that education under one unified brand, which is We All Arrive. And at the heart of this idea is really the truth that no matter where you're going or how you get there, what matters most is that we all arrive. So whether that's via bus, bike, car, walking, however you're getting where you're going, we just want to make sure that we all arrive safely. And as Julianne mentioned, we're tapping into a shared responsibility model. So looking at every user's part in traffic safety. Okay. So some of the key campaign elements will be videos and social media content. And then we'll also have a website hub. And this will be a really core part of the campaign, a website that any partner can go to and download resources to be able to then co-brand the We All Arrive message and share to their channels or grab a flyer before they go to an event so that we're all using the same language when we are talking about this campaign. We've had, like Julianne said, great response from partners and community groups and schools and everybody who's interested in being part of the campaign. And everybody is just so willing to share. I found like reached out and asked West Moines, for example, would you share your e-scooter resources? And had an immediate yes. So really it's just a way to put it all in place so that we can all access that great education. And then we'll also be producing some physical materials like signage, potentially a bus wrap at some point, and other printed guides and materials that we can have out in the community and where people are using them. We'll also be producing a few videos. The first one being an introductory video about the campaign and highlighting that theme of no matter where you're going or how you get there, it just matters that we all arrive. And again, really bringing home that message of shared responsibility on the road. And then we'll have a couple of other educational videos around bike safety, school zone safety, and we'll look to expand, I think, our video collection as we grow the campaign. And also on the video content, we're really interested in telling like lived experience stories. So if you know somebody who is a big traffic safety advocate or maybe has had a poor experience and wants to tell their stories, I think that we probably have some in the room. We'll be tapping into folks like that. So would love your engagement on this as we go forward. And with that, I'll hand it over to Stephanie, Appleton Our Communications team, who is a wonderful project manager and can talk through the timeline a little bit. Thank you. Hi, my name is Stephanie Appleby, and I am looking for some employment as well. I've just kind of been on the back end of this, and kind of like it was already mentioned, in March, we did start meeting with some identified community partners in a lot of areas of transportation. Biking, Carol was part of that. DART, anybody we could think of, because we know that the resources people have already had, we do want to capitalize on that and utilize things that everybody are already doing. We kind of met with them, see, you know, just to see where the things were going. This month, we have started working with Marketing Development 360 and 360 for the creative design of everything. So they kind of moving along with some of the wraps we can do for like art buses and different graphics stuff that we can use. We're hoping early May, we'll do a soft launch with the community partners, get any feedback from them, other things that we can start doing, and then we will launch soon after that. We're going to start with scooters and e-bikes. I think that's kind of the levels we're going to there. We're going to kind of move along after that. Any questions? I know it kind of mentions in here as well that there will be a shared Dropbox, so that anybody that does have resources that they're willing to allow others to use, we'll just share that, and anybody can grab any of these resources, use their logo on it in the different cities. And we'll do a webinar in May to share out resources. Yeah. And we've been in touch with, I was trying to look at all of the name tags across the room, I think with almost all of the communications folks who work with you all in this room and have had really great engagement. So they'll definitely be hearing about the campaign and get invited to the webinar where we start sharing resources that then anybody can use and share if they fit. If you see gaps in any of the material or feel like there's something specific to your jurisdiction that you need, we can modify anything. We can make things customizable. We just want the stuff used. So if you have feedback on it to us, give it. We have the ability to hold and modify over time. We just are hopeful that we can do some concerted pushes at the same time to really get visibility up in a shared way. Questions for us?
Any questions or comments?
If you think of anything or you want to reach out, all our email addresses are there. You can always reach out to the department. They'll also keep you connected with that. So
Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, Julianne and Addie and Polk County Health. We appreciate it.
thank you. Appreciate it. You guys do the fun business. I'm gonna go to T-ball.
T-ball. Next item is public participation plan. Gunner?
Thank you. We have reached the end of the development of our public participation plan. Today, we are asking you to adopt our public participation plan. This is one of our core documents. It spells out how we engage with the public, with our member jurisdictions, et cetera. We did end the public comment period on February 19th. We did receive some comments talking about social media, building in access for all of our meetings, making sure that we are appropriately engaging our cities in our roundtables. And then we address some errors in the document. I do want to note a few things about updates that were made in the public participation plan. We did clarify the purpose and scope of what the public participation plan and what it is and what it is not. We did make some changes that we've talked about previously in this group, to how our roundtables are formed, and also we had some clarifying language about what they are and what they are not, just to bring some clarity to what they are. For the record, we are treating those as public engagement tools, not policy-making bodies. They're for receiving feedback and input. Something that we did as a follow-up to our quadrennial review with FHWA is we added an ADA compliance facility checklist to that document that is documented. Made updates to our websites and maps. We added to some of the outreach methodologies that we use. Made sure to add a public comment to our website. And then we've been monitoring for any changes that will be required of us in this document as a result of the changes at the federal level. We have not seen anything as yet, so no changes in that regard. So to recap, this is one of our core documents outlining what it is we do in terms of public engagement. It is before you for your approval. Staff does recommend approval.
Questions, comments for Gunner? Is for voting, okay. Second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Items approved. Next item, audit services, Dylan.
As we've mentioned before, the auditor we've been using, which is Denman, we've come to the end of their contract. It also coincides with the time where our policy and procedures manual says that every 5 years we'll go back out for to solicit a new auditor. So we have done that. We did put out an RFP in late February, we back early April. We had 2 responses. So the responses were Denman, who was our incumbent auditor, and then the other one was Forbes Mazars. I think I'm saying that right. The finance subcommittee, which was made up of a few finance directors from our member communities, a few policymakers, did review those responses, and we were all in agreement that we want to move forward with Forbes Mazars. Part of that was because it's fresh eyes, someone new. They were also a little bit cheaper, though that didn't enter the equation too much. We just liked their approach a little bit better, and thought it was time to try something new. So that would be our recommendation. I don't know if anyone from the committee wants to weigh in or any further comments, but if not, that would be our suggestion.
Any thoughts on why we only got one other response besides the incumbent?
I don't know. We sent it out to a dozen or so different companies. We had others respond saying, yep, we're definitely going to apply, and then they didn't. We had a few say, this isn't for us, so we had to do that way. But yeah, I was kind of disappointed with the number that responded, but
Any concern with that? It's a little bit concerning to me.
I don't think so. The finance subcommittee didn't seem concerned either. So I think
Whenever you're doing government to a lot of these kind of things.
I think the fact that we have a single audit, which means we have that over $1 million of federal funds every year, I think turns off, because that's just more work, and I think that
Includes
makes
some other rounds.
yeah, that makes a few shy away. And that's one thing to know with Forbes Mazars, they do the audit for ICON, so that will I think help with that. That's always kind of the hang up that we have with ours. There's unknowns how that works. It's kind of a goofy project, so that knowledge will help with ours, I believe.
It's June 30th. Audit day.
Yes.
Fiscal.
Their response is very complete.
Yeah, it was.
I entertain a motion to approve. Approval. All those in favor will say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Item is approved. Item 9, non-voting item, but MPO office lease.
Thank you. Just a quick update on this. We hoped to have the final lease and everything worked out by today's date. That didn't quite happen, though it is moving forward very steadily. So we should have something for you in May. What's basically happened between last time we met and now is we've still been having conversations with NAP. The base lease, everything that's all squared away. Where we're still waiting on some information is just the construction upgrades and what all that final cost would be, what the TI, tenant improvement allowance would be. So I know we should have that soon. They were working, trying to get it by today. It just didn't happen. So we'll bring that up next month.
Very good. Item 10, mobilizing tomorrow, goal 3, Marcus.
Thank you. So as I mentioned multiple times last time I presented on these goals, we want to bring these quarterly. So now it's time for goal 3. In front of you on the screen is a bunch of words. This is goal 3. We summarize it down to this is our environmental goal. Move forward with the measure. We only have one performance measure for goal 3 at the moment. That is the percentage of non-single occupancy vehicle SOV travel. So that's essentially how people are moving about for all trips. So you can see that in the base year we had 34.4%. Our current is a little down from that, 27.9. Our 5-year target's 40, and each year 2050 target, RTP 60. This is based off of current APS data, so from the census. Not a whole lot of surprises here that it might have got down. You see that drive alone is still our heaviest percentage of trips. I think the one thing to note is that work from home is just under 17%. So that's obviously something that's happening from the shift during COVID and changes in policies from workplaces. So this is before you as a report. So there's no action. I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions? Marcus, thanks. Next item is final recommendation and funding scenario. Dylan and Gunnar are going to take this.
Thank you. I can kickstart this off. Before you on the screen is the overall map of where we've been and where we're heading. So you can see we're getting very close to the end of this whole process. Earlier today, right before this meeting, we had what I think will be the final, at least for now, meeting of the funding review committee. So I want to thank them for all their work. Now we're getting to the final build out of everything we've discussed. So what I want to do today is show you what we've heard, what we have before us, and make sure that we're all in agreement on this. And then the plan is next month we'll come forward and ask you to vote, and that vote will trigger a bunch of administrative actions that I'll talk about here in a moment. So this is really the last chance to, please speak up if you have questions, if you have concerns, and if not, we're setting in motion a lot of the administrative implementation of this that culminates all of this work. So again, what we've heard, and I won't go through this in great detail because we've gone through it before, but you can see that we had 4 different, things we were looking at, 4 different elements of this, and each one of those had 4 different ways we could go. So there's a lot of different ways we can slice and dice this. And you can see the bolded boxes is where we landed on that spectrum of these different items. To put that in more plain language, we'll jump ahead here in a couple. First, go back under real quick. I'll just go through this. No, sorry. The schedule of funding cycle, one of the big changes will be instead of starting in December, we're going to start in July. And I think we've covered this before, but just to recap, starting in July allows us to wrap up in early fall. That will help all of the communities understand what projects they are getting funding for or when they're doing their budgets and capital improvement programs. So that will help, hopefully, the communities align that a little bit better. And it gives us more time to get that all implemented into the TIP, which is where this kind of all works towards, that is done in the summer. And then keep in mind, we are doing this work now for projects that will be funded years out. So usually it's 4 years out. Because we skipped this year, we're going to do 2 years of one for in 2030 and 2031 dollars, what this next cycle will include. So in addition to that schedule change, just to walk through the other changes here, as was referenced in the public comment, there was a minimum threshold for safety scores put in place. We increased the number of safety points, the safety related scoring points, up to 44 points. And we're saying you have to have at least 11 or a quarter of the eligible safety points. So that is one element that goes into this. The second one was developing a program for safety audits, roadway safety audits and countermeasures. We said we would fund up to 80% of the audits and countermeasures on the high and critical corridors on the high injury safety network. Along with that, potentially hire we call it here a Vision Zero coordinator, some sort of staff capacity to allow us to work and help the communities with these roadway safety audits and implementation of those as we move forward. That is what the program would look like. And then in terms of where that funding pot comes from, we said we've established a 15%, we'd set aside 15% of the overall funding for a safety category. So that would help fund that roadway safety audit and countermeasure activity. And there's a little bit, about $500,000 left over in that if we look at the map, where we could do a little bit more with that as well. And then finally, there was an element of looking at our funding swap. So we said we would land on that pilot in the spectrum. That would be hiring a firm. This is what Columbus, Ohio is doing, hiring a firm to help develop that pilot program and look into this for us and let us know what the next steps might need to be. So those are I think back to that kind of spectrum, those are really those 4 elements plus the schedule. What will come back next month, to go to the next slide. So I guess real quick. One of the questions that came up from the funding review committee exec, and I think policy as well, is with this new scoring system, how would projects from the past have scored? So Marcus took some time and went through all the projects that were submitted last year and ran them through this new scoring system. And the results of that were very positive. There were 14 projects submitted last year in the system capacity optimization and major construction or replacement category. And you can see the number of those projects there. 13 of the 14 projects had better scores than before. Just one project went down, and it only went down by a few points. So as was referenced before, all those projects met that minimum safety threshold. The projects, this rescoring process will accommodate even more projects in that, in the system here. So that's one thing to note. Hopefully that gives people a little more assurance that this isn't going to totally change everything. So now going forward, we just want to make sure that people are comfortable with this, whether this reflects the priorities we've been talking about. Again, hopefully nothing new that you're seeing today aside from how the scores worked out. But all of this information, like I said, is really going to move towards that build out phase that we want to make sure we've got it buttoned up before we hit go on that. So I'll pause for a second there. Make sure everyone's comfortable with it. We're not asking for a vote today. We just kind of want to thumbs up or thumbs down. If not, okay. I think we might have one more slide. Yeah. So next steps, like I said, next month we'll come back and ask you to vote on it. That vote would then trigger a lot of administrative implementation of it. And these are things we could just do administratively, but since this is such a big deal with a big change, we really want to make sure everyone's on board with that. So that would really include 4 different things. A revision to Mobilize Tomorrow, which is our long-range plan to reflect the different aspects of this. The funding categories, the percentages, all derived from the long-range plan, so we need to make sure the long-range plan is consistent with that. Number 2 would be developing that swap program. So this is where we would develop the RFP, issue that, try to get a consultant on board to help us with that. The timing of that will probably be over the summer. Further direction on the funding guidelines. So we put out funding guidelines for the communities to follow when they actually go to fill out their applications. So we've streamlined that. We've incorporated all the elements into that in the guidelines. And then the 4th thing would be establishing that Vision Zero program. So there should be going out and figuring out consultants for that, finalizing our agreements with Federal Highway, looking at staffing needs, and all those sorts of things. So those will be the things we'll ask you to. That one vote will kind of launch all of these different.
How do you see the mechanics of the pilot program working? That just like you take one project and do it, or
it could be a few things, and this is all to be determined. But we think we would want to start with the safety countermeasures because those are smaller dollar amount that would make sense to swap with that. So it'd probably be identifying a certain type of project, and also maybe who the who the swapping partner could be. So if that's identifying one of our communities that would take on the federal funds in exchange for the, that's how we're kind of envisioning that pilot would be. And if that goes successful, then maybe we can roll it out to more project types, other project sponsors.
So Dylan, one more time, explain what a swapping partner is.
So that would be a community that would take, a community or local jurisdiction that would take on the federal funds. So if the MPO receives the federal funds, instead of giving them dispersing out through a bunch of communities, they might be concentrated into one of those communities. They would take on that federal burden and give back local dollars that then the MPO could give to those other communities. Does that help? Make sense a little bit?
So save some of the bureaucracy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that way only one community, fewer communities would be going through that federal bureaucracy, having to apply, comply with the Davis Bacon wages and NEPA and all the things that go along with that. And everyone else would get to just use local dollars, which has a lot less, fewer hurdles.
So for the extra work, does the
That,
community get
Percentage.
did they get something out of it?
that's
That's to be determined. In the communities that we've evaluated that do this, it's sometimes done on a case by case basis of whether they do 95 cents on the dollar or, how does that work? So that, I think that would be explored in that with the consultant to set up that program.
Would there be no harm to the entities?
No, definitely. So all the mechanics of how that would work, that's what we would want that consultant to help us figure out. And what kind of funding sources can be swapped, and that's a whole thing we need to figure out as well.
Would you send out the funding targets with the native safety?
Yep.
To-
Yeah, we can do that. That'll be in the post meeting email. We'll send out.
Can work be performed by the MPO, but on behalf of the partnering community?
Can you repeat that?
Can the work be completed by the MPO staff, but on behalf of the sponsoring community?
What work are you speaking of?
On this funding swap deal? To Carl's point, the local partner community has to take on the extra work. I'm wondering if the MPO staff can complete that work,
It
but
depends
just
on what
submitted on behalf of.
Yeah, I mean, some of the work would be actual construction work and different, just how that process works. So that's not something MPO staff takes on as far as construction. If it gets into grant reporting and that sort of thing, yeah, that could be something that we could take that burden off of the community. And I think
Okay.
that's all to be determined.
I think typically you want to put it in a project that's already federalized.
Exactly, right.
So think of a large project that's already federalized, that just puts more federal funding into it. There's no additional burden there. And then just swap out local dollars.
Yeah, there's admittedly a lot of questions that need to be answered, and that's why we want to have a consultant come on to help us with that. But I think the point of this is everyone felt this is worth pursuing, and this would be the next step in that process.
well, when someone says just swap out the dollar, that word just is a tricky, a little more involved. And
Any other questions or comments, concerns on that?
I'll just say that we've covered a lot of ground here and we're giving you very surface level information here. Anything you want to know more about, please reach out to staff. I'm glad to sit down with you and walk through the entire process and go deep into weeds as you like.
Yes. And do we have one more slide about yep. So one thing we're doing on June 4th, this would be right before the June technical committee meeting, is we're having, just like we had pancakes partners, we're going to do dollars and donuts now. And this will be a chance for your staff or consultants that work on behalf of the staff to fill out the applications, come in, walk through the tool that we've developed. We didn't touch on that here, but a new application tool has been developed so that communities have a good understanding of how that works, can get all their questions answered before we hit go on July 1st with the actual live application. So that's something we've announced with the tech committee. That's been shared across the consultant firms too that work with our communities. But anyone is welcome if you want to come hear how that works, or if you haven't done it, feel free to join us.
How does that line up with the DC trip?
Well, most of the tech people don't go on the DC trip. So there's some of you might not be here.
really good.
Best worried about getting stuff.
That's it.
Right.
Monday morning, maybe. It'll be around. I can go.
Yeah,
Sure, they're doing it.
Can I stay back and
I'm
give
with
this?
you, Scott. We hear more. Okay. Next item on the agenda is legislative update and DC report. What is that legislature doing? Gunner.
You tell me, Matt. You know better than we do. We've been watching several things here. I've listed them on the screen here. I know you and your staff are watching these things yourselves, so I'm not going to belabor each of these points. Really, this is an opportunity for the group to discuss any of these. Obviously, the SUDAS bill was passed out of both House and Senate. The planning bill is continuing to be monitored. Was there movement on that today even? No. Okay. I updated these not yesterday, but the day before. So if there's action in between, then I might have missed it. But watching the planning bill, it's been placed on the unfinished business calendar, so it's not on the calendar yet, but it could be soon. The bike safety bill that made a splash early on that didn't move this session. But of course, all the property tax bills, continue to be alive. I'll pause here if there's any discussion you'd like to have.
Discussion, questions, comments?
It just got worse today, so.
I feel like if I could, it's important to make sure others are aware that with the House amendment today that was passed, they have addressed the ability to charge your capital costs that are associated with staff. So if you have on staff engineers, planners, inspectors that do your work for your own city's capital, that the fix is in there on the House, but it still is not in the Senate's bill. So if you don't have staff in your community that work exclusively on capital and charge to your capital funds, you're okay. But if you do, you're going to want to make sure that language ends up in the Senate bill. I don't see Wes Des Moines here. They're on the call.
He's online.
There are a few of us.
Hey, Scott.
And there's a whole lot more, but I think that one was the key one. I wanted to make sure that this group, with your transportation planning and whatnot, could potentially be impacted. Thank you.
Anything else? Look aside.
Unless there's anything else you want to speak to as it relates to the state legislative session, we'll do a real quick hit on the tracking of the federal reauthorization of the transportation bill. That is under development, has been for some time. We've been sharing some goalposts that we've heard. I want to share recently that we had an email exchange with Grassley's office, Sherry in particular. They signaled that the transportation bill is not likely to get done this year, and more likely to be taken up by the next Congress. I was reaching out specifically as it relates to the Feature 435 weight exemption that we're seeking. And she indicated that they'll have to resubmit as part of that process. That wasn't a big concern of hers, but just a process thing that they'll need to take care of at that time. So I just want to pass along that little tidbit. Lastly, we have the annual DC list. This is a list of projects seeking federal funding, like in front of our congressional delegation each year. And we have been very intentional about keeping the list pared down to just those projects that are actively seeking federal funds. So it's a much tighter list this year as we've continued to be insistent on that rule. So you can see it up here. I'm not going to go into each of this in detail. You've seen them before, hopefully. I will note that the dark maintenance your operations facility is not on here, which is great news. The airport is not on here. They've indicated that they're pretty much at the finish line there, so I think we can all feel pretty good about all the progress. It's the first time in my memory here that those weren't on the list. So we're not acting for any action at this point, but just want to let you know this is what we're headed to DC with. This is the living list. If something pops up, feel free to reach out to staff and we'll adjust.
Are there any MBO specific meetings scheduled with the delegation?
We are following the lead of the partnership. The partnership has, as you know, organized policy teams around a couple of different priorities. One of the federal priorities is a broad umbrella of regional transportation. So we'll be a part of that policy team. We have a coordination call with Warbook tomorrow, actually. But we're following their lead. It works out nicely for us as well as for the congressional delegation. Do a lot of their scheduling with the partnership. So way we've been practicing it is we let them schedule those primary meetings and then we'll do bookings of that.
I have mentioned this before, I think in this group too, I'll say it one more time, that if you have specific meetings that you want us at, that might be for a project, transportation project in your community, please let us know and we're happy to participate if you want it there.
Anything else on the decents? Okay, well, we'll miss the donuts, but we'll have a good time.
Thanks, Gunner. Today is Gunner's 47th birthday, so make sure you wish him a happy birthday. Now, we can go ahead and move on to the director's report.
I was going to cover that there, but that's okay.
Oh,
Just kidding. If you want to go ahead. So what I like to do here is just walk through a strategic plan and let you know where we're at in terms of its implementation and talk about a few things we haven't talked about already. So in terms of the governance and what we call that governance operations bucket there, we talked about the auditor, so that's taken care of now. That's great. We'll have the office space next month. 2080 and bylaws will be the next big thing that we take on here. I've mentioned that a few times. Scott and I met earlier this week and walked through that a little bit. Committee's been formed, and you can see the names of it's all mayors up there on that list, who will start meeting here pretty soon and working through some of those issues. So more to come on the 2080 and bylaws the next few months. And then the other big thing next month will be approval of the work program and budget for next fiscal year. I don't anticipate anything drastically that has changed with that from what you saw in March, but we'll bring that forward next month for you. Moving on, regional planning and federal excellence is all the stuff that we're required to do, or that kind of fits the main federally required stuff from the MPO. We talked about the funding review earlier today, so that's on schedule. I do want to give a big thanks to that funding review committee that a few of you serve on. They've met monthly pretty much since October and did some really deep dives into that work, which I know was kind of scrambling your brain a little bit. So I want to thank them for putting up with us on that. Also got the public participation plan out of the way. Upcoming, we've got some, like I said, the actions related to the implementation that will happen next month. The other two things we haven't spoken about much, but you'll see more of here soon, is the active transportation plan. So this is covering all things walking, biking, scootering, that sort of stuff, as well as the freight stuff. So those two things are on pace, I think, to be done hopefully by the end of the fiscal year. So over the next couple of months, you'll hear more about that. Moving on to the partnerships and services. This is the category where how do we help our member communities or other regional partners. There's been a lot of work recently, and there'll be a lot of work ongoing about housing and transportation coordination. On April 1st, we had about 30 planners from across the metro meeting with some facilitators from Smart Growth America and from Washington, D.C. who's part of a HUD implementation or HUD technical assistance program, just to start talking about how do we work better together on housing and transportation coordination. So how do we build transit or housing around transit and that sort of thing. So that will continue. There's some events coming up later this month with the Housing Symposium on April 30th. And then at the end of May, there will be a bus tour that goes on the new Route 4 that'll point out some affordable housing and economic development and transportation projects and all sorts of fun things that you will all be invited to if you have not already been invited by the House of Trust. The other thing that I'll want to here's some photos from that April 1st event. You want to flip through those real quick. It's a good turnout. A lot of thank you for your staff attending those, which you may not have been aware of. And on it, like I said, April 30th, we'll have this event that the MPO is helping to sponsor, which is the Housing Matters Conference. And there'll be some, after that event, other forum for planners to get together and have some further conversations on that. Real quick on that previous slide, one thing I want to mention real quick, we've talked before about you want to go back to the other list, Gutter, the Grimes line. We did find out that a couple days ago that the Norfolk Southern did file for abandonment. So that process is now underway. We've got some meetings scheduled. I think tomorrow Gutter's going to meet with the Iowa Natural Heritage Foundation to learn more about what's entailed and what we need to do. So you'll be hearing more about that here soon, but just want to let you know that has happened. Final thing is multimodal economic impact study. That's something we haven't really talked about recently, but that is starting to wrap up, and I anticipate here in the next couple of months we'll have agenda items on here asking for you to learn more about that and ultimately receive and file or approve that. report as well. So I went through that quick. Any questions, comments, anything I didn't talk about, want to know about? Covered. To say happy birthday to Gunner for that, so.
All right. Any other items of interest to the committee at this time?
There's one, so the state streets and roads for all FY 26 NOFO has been released. It got released in March. The application is due in May. Quick turnaround. Up on the screen, it lists the funding available this year. The plan is to move forward with the implementation projects that were submitted last year and put those into an application this year, update the application a little bit, and then resubmit. We talked to all of the technical committee members from each of your communities who submitted projects last year. They all gave us a thumbs up and said, yes, please resubmit. So we'll plan to move that forward. I would assume that we will have a draft of the updated grant application ready by the next call.
Projects.
So for the city of Des Moines, it's a roundabout on 9th Street. Testing me here.
It's okay. You answered my question. Good answer.
So also a roundabout in Grimes, 2 roundabouts, some pedestrian improvements.
Yeah. Okay.
Under trail underpasses, things like
It's also assuming Des Moines will actually get its award that's at the finish line, but it's not over yet.
that, right? Yeah. So, any other questions on this?
Doesn't happen.
Thanks, Marcus. Next meeting is set for 4 p.m. Thursday, May 20th. Hearing no other business, I entertain a motion to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Fine.
Opposed? You're adjourned. Thank you.
Yeah.